Hello students, welcome to this program titled Revised National Policy of Education. The objectives set for the present session are to know the history of revised national policy of education, to understand the objectives of revised national policy of education, and to highlight the revised features of national policy of education. In 1968, when the national policy of education was formulated for improving the educational scenario in our country, there it was envisaged that it would be followed by a 5-yearly review to progress and working out of new policies and programs. Regarding this statement, at the time of formulation of every new 5-year plan, a review has been made to assess the drawbacks or shortcomings as well as achievements of education and finally to decide on some plans or programs for the coming 5 years. It is through making the policies and programs that every country seeks to develop its system of education, to express and promote its unique socio-cultural identity and also to meet the challenges of the times. The National Policy of Education of 1986 is the result of the reviews which was discussed and adapted during the budget session of 1985 when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. Again, a committee was set up under the chairmanship of Acharya Ramamurthy in May 1990 to review national policy of education and to make recommendations for its modification. The Central Advisory Board of Education, a committee set up in July 1991 under the chairmanship of Sri N. Janardana Reddy, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, considered some modifications in national policy of education, taking into consideration the report of the Ramamurthy Committee and other relevant development having a bearing on the policy. This committee submitted its report in January 1992, which is known as National Programme of Action of 1992. This policy aimed to promote national progress, a sense of common citizenship and culture, and to strengthen national integration. It laid stress on the need for a radical reconstruction of the education system to improve its quality at all stages and therefore gave much greater attention to science and technology, the cultivation of moral values and a closer relation between education and the life of people. The 1992 Revised National Policy of Education states that aim of education is to keep intact India's long accepted values of secularism, socialism, democracy and professional ethics. Education is fundamental to the all-round development of a person. The 1992 National Policy of Education promises efforts to develop a common school system through 10+2+3 structure. The policy accepts the +2 as part of school education. With the constitutional amendment of 1976, education has been placed on the concurrent list, which gives the central government a bigger role in the implementation of education. In an attempt to remove inequalities in the education system, the policy emphasizes the importance of special programs for marginalized groups as such women, scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, handicapped, etc. Some of the provisions for scheduled castes listed are incentives to families, pre-matric scholarship, constant micro-planning to ensure enrollment, retention and successful completion of scheduled caste students. Recruitment of scheduled caste teachers, hostel provisions for SC students and appropriate location of school building to facilitate participation of scheduled castes. Similar provisions are made for scheduled tribes, including use of youth teachers and use of tribal languages at initial stages. Recognizing the impact of early years to the development of a child, the policy makes room for early childhood care and education through the Integrated Child Development Services Program. Education will adopt a child-centered approach, hence catering on an individual level to the needs of the child. Corporal punishment is to be firmly excluded from the teaching system. As per Operation Blackboard, there should be one teacher per class and all necessary equipments and teaching material should be provided for the program. Non-formal education system of centers and facilities will be broadened. It will be brought up to the level of formal education facilities with specially trained teachers from the community so that children passing out of non-formal education can enter the formal system. According to the policy, the highest priority will be placed on solving the problem of dropouts and ensuring retention at the school level. This effort will be supplemented by non-formal education. The policy states like, it shall be ensured that free and compulsory education of satisfactory quality is provided to all children up to 14 years of age before we enter the 21st century. In order to enhance the quality higher education, boards of secondary education will be granted autonomy. The policy introduced generic vocational courses in higher education to enhance individual employability and meet the manpower need of the India's growing economy. Children who have special talent have been given the opportunities to enhance their aptitude through Navodaya Vidyalayas. In order to make the education system work, the policy outlines 4 necessary steps. First, giving the teachers a better deal and more accountability. Second, improved student services and adherence to certain norms of behavior. Third, better facilities for instruction. Fourth, setting standards for performance evaluation at the national and state level. According to the policy, education must be culturally applicable and inculcate values in the children and hence society. There is need to develop the use of local languages in education. There is a need for low-priced books and improvement in library management as well as additional libraries. There are provisions in the policy for work experience as a part of education. Population education using math as a tool to teach analytical thinking. Strengthen science education and support sports, physical education and yoga. The policy called for greater participation of educated youths and revision of the evaluation system so that it does not simply reflect rote learning. It emphasizes the importance of teacher training and continual teacher education. The policy devotes an entire section to overhauling the planning and management system surrounding education at national, state, district and local levels. It outlines that it's both the government and the community's responsibility for providing funds and that inadequate or non-investment is a major problem facing education. Now we will discuss main objectives of the policy. The main objective of the policy of education of 1986 and Program of Action 1992 was to establish a national system of education implies that all students, irrespective of caste, creed, sect and religion, have access to education of a comparable quality. Actually, the objectives of this policy had been divided into several aspects. First, in relation to elementary education, the major objective of National Policy of Education 1986 are mainly universal access and enrollment, universal retention of children up to 14 years of age, and a sustainable improvement in the quality education to enable all children to achieve essential levels of learning. Second, regarding secondary education, National Policy of Education stressed on the improvement of the quality of secondary education. Efforts to be made to provide computer literacy in as many secondary level institutions to make the students equipped with necessary computer skills. Third, regarding higher education, National Policy of Education and Program of Action of 1986 and 1992 emphasized that higher education should provide to the people with an opportunity to reflect on the critical social, economic, cultural, moral and spiritual issues. Thus, the basic objectives of the National Policy of Education of 1986 and the Program of Action of 1992 emphasized that education must play a positive and interventionist role in correcting social and regional imbalance, empowering women and in securing rightful place for the disadvantaged and the minorities. Government should take a strong determination and commitment to provide education for all. The priority areas being free and compulsory education, covering children with special needs, eradication of illiteracy, education for women's equality, and special focus on the education of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and minorities. Fourth, the education policy as highlighted in the National Policy of Education also emphasized on enhancing and promoting the vocationalization of education, adult education, education for the mentally and physically challenged person, non-formal education, open universities and distance learning, rural universities, early childhood care and education. Now the revised features of Revised National Policy on Education 1992. Common educational structure. The revised para here is like the national system of education envisages a common educational structure. The 10 2+2+3 structure has now been accepted in all parts of the country. Regarding the further breakup of the first 10 years, efforts will be made to move upwards an elementary system comprising 5 years of primary education and 3 years of upper primary, followed by 2 years of high school. Efforts will also be made to have the +2 stage accepted as a part of school education throughout the country. Now, institutions of national importance, and the revised plan is like the institutions which will be strengthened to play an important role in giving shape to the national system of education are the University Grant Commission, the All Indian Council of Technical Education, the Indian Council of Agriculture, and the Indian Medical Council. Integrated planning will be instituted among all these bodies so as to establish functional linkages and reinforce programs of research and postgraduate education. These, together with the National Council of Education, Research and Training, the National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, the National Council of Teacher Education, and the National Institute of Adult Education will be involved in the implementing the education policy. Education of scheduled tribes. Here the revised para is like priority will be accorded to opening primary schools in the tribal areas. The construction of school buildings will be undertaken in these areas. The construction of school buildings will be undertaken in these areas on a priority basis under the normal funds for education as well as under the Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, tribal welfare scheme, etc. Mass literacy programs. Here the revised aspect is the whole nation has pledged itself through the National Literacy Mission to the eradication of illiteracy, particularly in the 15 to 35 age group through various means with special emphasis on the total literacy campaign. The central and state governments, political parties and other mass organizations, the mass media and the educational institutions, teachers, students, youth, voluntary agencies, social activist groups and employees must reinforce their commitment to mass literacy campaigns, which includes literacy and functional knowledge and skills and awareness among learners about the socio-economic reality and the possibility to change it. Program of adult and continuing education. The revised para is comprehensive programs of post-literacy and continuing education will be provided for neo-literates and youth who have received primary education with a view to enabling them to retain and upgrade their literacy skills and to harness it for the improvement of their living and working condition. These programs would include: first, establishment of continuing education centers of diverse kind to enable adults to continue their education of their choice. Second, workers' education through the employers, trade unions and government. Third, wider promotion of books, libraries and reading rooms. Fourth, use of radio, TV and films as mass as well as group learning media. Fifth, creation of learner groups and organizations. Sixth, programs of distance education. The revised aspect, a critical development issues today is the continuous upgradation of skills so as to produce manpower, resources of the kind and the number required by the society. Special emphasis will therefore be laid on the organization of employment, self-employment oriented and need and interest-based vocational and skill training programs, elementary education and school facilities. The revised para is provision will be made of essential facilities in primary schools. The scope of Operation Blackboard will be enlarged to provide 3 reasonably large rooms that are usable in all weather, and blackboards, maps, charts, toys, other necessary learning aids, and school library. At least 3 teachers should work in every school, the number increasing as early as possible. To 1 teacher per class, at least 50% of teachers recruited in future should be women. The operational blackboard will be extended to upper primary stage also. Construction of school buildings will be priority charge on Jawahar Rozgar Yojana funds. Elementary education and non-formal education. Here the revised para is the non-formal education program meant for school dropouts, for children, for habitations without school, working children and girls who cannot attend whole day school. Elementary education, revised para is all necessary measures will be taken to ensure that the equality of non-formal education is comparable with the formal education. Steps will be taken to facilitate later entry into the formal system of children passing out of non-formal system. The new education policy will give highest priority to solving the problem of children dropping the school and will adopt an array of meticulously formulated strategies based on micro-planning and applied at the grassroots level all over the country to ensure children's retention at school. This effort will be fully coordinated with the network of non-formal education. It shall be ensured that free and compulsory education of satisfactory quality is provided to all children up to 14 years of age before we enter the 21st century. A national mission will be launched for the achievement of this goal. Secondary education in its differentiated role. Secondary education begins to expose students to differentiated role of science, the humanities and the social science. This is also an appropriate stage to provide children with a sense of history and national perspective and give them opportunities to understand their constitutional duties and rights as citizens. Access to secondary education will be widened to emphasis on enrollment of girls, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, particularly in science, commerce and vocational streams. Boards of secondary education will be reorganized and vested with autonomy so that their ability to improve the quality of secondary education is enhanced. Efforts will be made to provide to computer literacy in as many secondary level institutions as possible to that the children are equipped with necessary computer skill to be effective in emerging technological world. A proper understanding of the work ethos and of the values of a humane and composed culture will be brought about through appropriately formulated curricula. Vocationalization through specialized institutions or through refashioning of secondary education can at this stage provide valuable manpower for economic growth. Secondary education, pay-setting schools, Navodaya Vidyalayas. The revised para is like pay-setting schools, Navodaya Vidyalayas, intended to serve this purpose, have been established in most parts of the country on a given pattern, but with full scope for innovation and experimentation. Their broad aims will continue to be to serve the objective of excellence, coupled with equity and social justice, with reservations for the rural areas, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, to promote national integration by providing opportunities to talented children from different parts of the country to live and learn together, to develop their full potential, to become catalysts of a nationwide program of school improvement. Vocationalization of education. Revised para is the introduction of systematic, well-planned and vigorously implemented programs of vocational education is crucial in the proposed education reorganization. These elements are meant to develop a healthy attitude among students towards work and life, to enhance individual employability, to reduce the mismatch between the demand and supply of skilled manpower, and to provide an alternative for those intending to pursue higher education without particular interest or purpose. Efforts will be made to provide children at the higher secondary level with generic vocational course which cut across several occupational fields and which are not occupational specific. Higher education, open university and distance learning. The revised para is the open learning system has been initiated to augment opportunities for higher education as an instrument of democratizing education and to make it a lifelong process. The flexibility and innovativeness of the learning system are particularly suited to diverse requirements of the citizens of our country, including those who have joined the vocational stream. The Indira Gandhi National Open University, established in 1985 in fulfillment of these objectives, will be strengthened. It would also provide support to establishment of open universities in states. The National Open School will be strengthened and open learning facilities extended in a phased manner at secondary level in all parts of the country. This is all related to our today's topic, that's Revised National Policy of Education. Hope you have enjoyed and understood. Thank you for watching.